and gentlemen, it's the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. I'm your host, Rob Moore. With me, as always, the co-host with the mo-host, the Mythmeister himself, Brian Edward. What's up, Brian?
How's it going?
Been a few weeks, actually, since we did the show together here. Summer hiatus of a couple of weeks, and we are back live, of course, every week. We keep an all-seeing eye of Horus on the secular movement.
Nice.
Along with producer Sean Frasick and the team, Adam Montney, Lawrence Yufa, and others. Podcasting, we are every Sunday at 2 p.m. live from the Bucket Works location here in the Grand Avenue Mall in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. The Mythicist Milwaukee Show also receives support from Craft, the Kenosha Racine area, Free Thinkers, and the atheist community of Milwaukee. Now, we got a little business to talk about this week. The show has really been growing in popularity because of you, the listener, the secular audience that we try so hard to reach with pertinent content and exciting, relevant guests, and we thank everybody for that. It's been really gratifying. Of course, we're still small fish in a big pond, but we're learning, we're improving every day, and in order to keep doing that, in order to keep bringing you the killer content you crave, we need your support. And there are, of course, a number of ways you can do that now as Mythicist Milwaukee moves forward, and we'd like to talk about our Patreon page. If you enjoy the content, you can support the new Patreon page, which is amounts to what I think of as the old walkathon. When we were kids, you get a pledge from people for every mile that you walk. They give you 5 cents or 10 cents or $1, and I guess Patreon works kind of the same way. I'm a little bit new to it all, but essentially you pledge a certain amount per show, and every time we do a podcast and every time we put one up on YouTube, you donate a little bit of money to Mythicist Milwaukee to help us keep on bringing in these great guests and putting on the show that we've all been so proud to bring you lately. Also, we'd like to talk about the membership. Brian, you want to talk a little bit about the membership, how it works, and what you get for that?
Membership is $75. You get an automatic, that would be a year long, and you get a free ticket to the Myth Information Conference coming up. So that's included. There's a whole host of other goodies on there. Check out our website at mythicistmilwaukee.com to check them all out. But you get the free ticket to the MythCon. I think that's the biggest thing, and it really does help support all that we do.
I think you can get the you can pay per month. An $8 a month fee gets you the same membership, and with certain restrictions, you can also work that to get the tickets to the conference. So it's a really good deal if you have any kind of interest at all in that. Of course, follow us on Mixlr. You can get live notifications when we put the show on live, and you can find us on SoundCloud as always. We are on social media: Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Great Pinterest page. Tumblr, and a new StumbleUpon account. So find us on all of those, follow and like. Also on meetup.com. If you're a part of meetup.com, we have a page. It's the
That's right.
Milwaukee Atheists, Skeptics, and Humanists page where we have a variety of social meetups and more different sort of entertaining events other than the conventions and podcasts, which are a little bit high-minded for, some of the folks just want to mingle and talk. Do different kind of stuff. So that's all on that page. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is getting bigger all the time. And thanks again to the team for the great work that goes on there. New member Joseph Kyle's been helping out with that. And, of course, the Myth Information Conference #2 coming up on September 27th at the Milwaukee Holiday Inn Riverfront. Really excited about that. Brian, go ahead and talk to the guests on that for a second.
Reserve the Saturday night before that, which is the 26th. So it's a pre-party instead of a post-Saturday. Or a Sunday is the 27th, so we reserve that. And we have 4 guests coming: Arthur George, Mandisa Thomas, David Fitzgerald, and Killa Priest will all be speaking. You definitely want to be there. It'll be a blast.
For $35, you get to see Killa Priest make his debut public speaking. Represents a big career shift, and we're really excited to be the sponsors of that groundbreaking event. Really looking forward to it. And, of course, a pre-party. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you get to chill with these people.
For $70, you get to chill with Mandisa Thomas. She started Black Nonbelievers nationwide. She's already been on national TV. We can only aspire to her level of influence at this point here in the secular black hole of Milwaukee. And while we're talking about Mandisa, of course, support their efforts to grow that organization, Black Nonbelievers, at GoFundMe.com. You can find them there. She, of course, will be at the conference. So thanks for putting up with all of that. I feel like the guys on I feel like the guys on Sunday morning were, on PBS, where we're doing the drive. We need your money, people. But there's a lot of ways now to get involved and really make a difference because we want to be part of this growing and exciting secular community worldwide. Speaking of worldwide, from the other side of the globe today, we're really excited to have our next guest on. We don't normally have entertainers or artists on. It's been research heavy and educators and lecturers and mythicists and people who are studying the books. And tonight we shake it up with Shelley Segal from Australia. She is waking up to a bright Monday morning down under. How are you, Shelley?
Good, thanks. Hi, Rob. Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging in through that long intro here, and welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's nice to be speaking to you from the future.
We are excited to hear that you're coming to these shores, of course, for a tour, August through October. Finishing up with a local appearance, and you have a new EP called Strange Feelings. Go ahead and talk to us about the new music.
I've released a new EP this May, came out, so really still getting it out there, and it's my fifth recording, and it's just nice to be able to have new stuff to bring back with me to the States. I'll be coming over in August, and on tour on the road for 3 months, playing at different venues, pubs and clubs and bars, and also at a lot of conferences and playing for a lot of different secular and atheist organizations. That's because of my first album that I released called An Atheist Album.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that you're an atheist songwriter, or was that more of a one-album phase, and obviously you have a broader scope than that, but do you think of yourself as an atheist songwriter first, or as an entertainer primarily?
I think of myself as an atheist and a songwriter, and I think of myself as someone that writes songs about issues that are really important to me. So I've written an album about atheism that was mostly inspired from going through that process of becoming an atheist, because I grew up religious and actually playing in a Jewish function band, so playing religious music, and so going through that change was really significant for me, and that's what sparked the album. But there's been songs I've written since then that I think could be under that category, and because that is my worldview, I'm always going to write music that reflects my worldview. But I wouldn't say I'm just solely making atheist music. I make music about what matters to me, and what I loved about that project was, delving into a subject and learning heaps about it, and then coming out with a concept album. And so I'd like to do something like that again, with different topics, to explore different areas that I'm interested in. But I definitely think that I will have more recordings out soon that include material that could be, under that heading.
Does that put you in a kind of a unique category? Because I don't know anyone that maybe is out. I can't think of anyone that has made an atheist album like you did. Or is there anyone else that you knew, or that might have been an inspiration, or did you just kind of come to this?
Well, it just came to me in that way of, I had a few songs about the topic, and then I thought, how cool to do a full album where I get to discuss all my opinions in the one place. And I think it was, as far as I know, it was the first, pop. It was a heavy folk influence there, but it was still like a pop-produced album. We produced the record in London with Tom Nichols at Pink Floyd's old studio, and I had Darren Hayes' band playing with me. So, pop players in a pop studio, so we really wanted this to be accessible to people that listen to mainstream music. So I think it was, as far as I know, the only atheist pop album that I've heard of. But I do know there are lots of other musicians that are doing this kind of stuff. There's a fantastic rapper called Graydon Square. Have you heard of Graydon?
What was the name again?
Graydon?
Graydon Square. He's really, really fantastic rapper and makes free thought music and is part of a hip-hop collective called Grand Unified, where everyone involved is interested in making art that reflects science and skepticism. And I know Dan Barker, of course, from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, who's made many atheist albums. And what's great about Dan, he's a fantastic piano player and lyricist as well. And so he writes all different styles. His atheist songs are from a tango to a standard, jazz standard kind of tune. And he does a lot of reworking of old songs with new lyrics. So there's a lot of music out there. Actually, there's a band in San Diego that I'll be supporting when I come over on my tour, who are an atheist hard rock band, and they will be releasing their new album Baby Eater in in August. So it's really nice. I think, like you were saying, with how you're having the previously research heavy and that kind of stuff. I think the movement is starting to foster and develop a bit of a culture around it, and even just in the time that I've been attending conferences, I've seen the conference organisers start to include more cultural elements. So rather than just the traditional lectures and debates, they're including art shows and comedians and musicians. And I think that's really nice. I think that's something that strengthens a community. And sometimes it's nice to have that full spectrum of approaches to an idea, because sometimes for someone who doesn't understand atheism or free thought or secularism, some of those ideas, when just presented, in a lecture form, can be a bit confronting. But to hear an idea through music or through comedy or through art might just be an easier way to get that idea across.
Yeah, agreed. I've seen people fall asleep in lecture halls, but never at concerts.
It's a great point. Great point. What's the name of the heavy metal band? You mentioned the album's Baby Eater. What's the name of the band?
The band is called Monster on Sunday, and anyone in San Diego should come check them out August 7th at the Ramona Main Stage. They're doing something really exciting for the community there. They're putting on like a real mainstream show at one of the premier live venues in San Diego, and they're aiming to get 300 people down, a full rock concert. And I'm going to play. There's Steve Hill, who's a free thinker comedian from just north of LA, and he's coming down too. So it's going to be this really, really spectacular evening.
Yeah, and tickets are available through Shelley's Facebook link. I saw that. So in case anyone's wondering where to go.
And of course, Dan Barker right here down the road. We just saw him tickling the ivories with another kind of a guy who did this. Do you remember his name when we went to Madison? The guy that did his little stand-up act. I find that the comedians too, they'll mix a song in Tim Minchin style. Tim Minchin does atheist content.
Yeah.
But the
Bo
people,
Burnham.
Bad Religion, the punk band, has been around for a long time. But really, we've named.
What about the Axis of Awesome, which I believe is an Australian band? They're mostly a comedy act, but they did have a great one on the Trinity. Are you familiar with them?
I haven't heard that one. I know Axis of Awesome, but I haven't heard their song on the Trinity. I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's worth a listen.
I think the point is that there's a pantheon of Christian rock bands. I mean, there's they put on a mega tour of these the stadium type bands, and here we are, with a few singer songwriters, kind of troubadour style, going around plying their trade of atheism, and it's tip my hats off to the what is a growing, and I think what you said, Shelley, was really relevant, a really more accessible way, and people respond to music and art much more differently than to pedantic lecturing from know-it-alls like you and I sometimes.
What the music speaks to emotion.
Yes. And a lot of people miss that about just like we see with the Sunday Assembly. People want ritual, people want gathering, they want community, they want to feel together. So I think it's fantastic. Have you been here a lot before to the States, Shelley, on tour?
Yeah, this will be my 9th tour.
Wow. That's like a month on a plane
Yeah,
altogether,
I
isn't
love.
it? It's like,
I know.
Yeah. No, I actually in 2012 I spent a month. Just that year, I spent a month on airplane.
no, that would make me nuts, man. I would love to go to Australia. I mean, to us, it's romantic. Everybody here, I think there's not an American in the world that would not want to go to see Australia, but the trip is so daunting.
I know. Everyone says that when I'm there, like, oh, I really want to go to Australia.
Everybody
Like,
does.
go somewhere more different first, because it's quite similar culturally to
I
you
think
guys. I
that's-
feel like it's a mix of America and the UK.
I think that's probably right, and I think it gives. I mean, that's what makes it comfortable for Americans who aren't really. They want to travel, but they don't want to be confronted with the exotic too much. But we have an idea that Australia is kind of like America in the Old West to us here. It's like, yeah, it's a little bit rough, a little bit,
Shrimp
a
on
little
the
bit more
baldy.
dangerous. You know, there might be a great white shark or something, and other than that, it's pretty cool. It's pretty American. I think that's part of the appeal. So tell us how you got out of Judaism. Why don't you bring us? We like to get at our guests' origins. I figure with a name like Segal, you probably came from Judaism. But how did you get out? Was that recent to that album, or were you?
Yeah, that's a good guess. Yeah, I was raised Jewish, and my father is the president of a synagogue in my city.
Oh my!
And yeah, I was. I'd say we had like a traditional, like a liberal level of observance, but we identified more with my parents would probably identify as traditional Jews, and they went to an Orthodox synagogue, but at home we were more liberal level of observance. And yeah, I was a big part of the community. Judaism was a big part of my life. We went to synagogue every week. I was part of a Jewish Zionist youth group. So I went to Jewish school and played in a Jewish wedding band, and I played Jewish music at old folks' homes. Was just a really, really massive part of my life. And then when I was 16, I was in biology class, which I took because I like animals. I thought, oh yeah, I love animals. And then I learned about evolution, and that was the first time that I considered that my worldview, the biblical account of creation, might not be exactly accurate in how things had come to be, which was, very exciting time. I thought the idea was so powerful, and then pretty much from there I started challenging different ideas that were part of my religion. I was dating a non-Jewish guy, which is a big no-no in the Jewish community, and that made me question things. Why would religion get in the way of love? Why wouldn't my parents want me to be happy? This person is a good person. I ended up moving in with him and his family, who were atheists. They didn't really identify as such. They just weren't religious, and they went about their day making their decisions based on reason and probabilities. I remember the first time, my boyfriend that was talking about making his decisions based on probabilities. I thought, he's completely insane. Why doesn't he make his decisions based on how he feels? Really different ideas. We had this one fight in the car one time outside his house, and he was telling me there's no such thing as a soul, and I was getting so upset, and I said, you can say that you don't have a soul, but you can't say that I don't have a soul. And I guess the final straw for me was when I was traveling. I was 19. I was traveling around Europe and different parts of the world, and I just saw so many different worldviews, and then I realized that mine is just another worldview that is equally deserving of investigation and criticism. And I saw a lot of suffering as well that made me, kind of really decide that I didn't believe in a God and religion was not for me.
Did your parents take that okay, or did you kind of keep that inside for a while?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult at first, actually, because I was pretty angry. I think, I was still a teenager and not that articulate yet at explaining the way that I felt about things. And I was quite angry, and I felt like I've spent my whole life believing this stuff. You taught me all this without finding out if it was true or not first. And I was quite angry, and I was resentful really for what I felt was a lot of time wasted, educating myself and being really involved in something that I'd now, believe to be nonsense. I could pray for half an hour and all this stuff that's in my head, and I was quite upset. And then, of course, they took that as an affront to their values and to the life that we'd shared together, and it was a really difficult time, but I was very lucky. I know I've met a lot of people in the movement who haven't really been able to reconcile things with their family or get past, an experience like that. So I was very lucky in that my family and I have been able to work things out. We've always been very close. We're still very close. I was actually so fortunate. My family, supported me in the release of my album, and my atheist album. Despite feeling quite differently, I was able to sit down with my dad and go through the lyrics and of each song and explain to him and show him the ways in which our worldviews converge, in that we're both humanists. We both want equal rights for women. We both want to focus on this world now rather than a world to come. And to the extent where my father, who I grew up playing music with in his Jewish wedding band, he plays the violin, he ended up accompanying me on the violin at the Global Atheist Convention, despite being the president of an Orthodox synagogue. So I feel very, very privileged and lucky to got through that difficult time.
Yeah, that's pluralism. That's really cool that you guys could share and find what you had in common. Support for women's rights, supports for maybe separation of church and state, but yet not have to fight. To be able to be open like that and not feel horribly judged. That is really cool. That's a great story.
Yeah. And, I think Jews have a deep understanding for the need of separation of church and state. Because they've never been the majority, and they never will be the majority religion, so they don't know what that feels like. There's no war on Hanukkah. So I think, Jews really understand the need for that separation, so it might have made it a bit easier.
Right.
I'm just picturing you singing Hava Nagila at a wedding. After I've heard all your pretty atheist songs. I used one of them for a long time for a little podcast we did with a different show. I tweeted you about that. I think, is there copyright issues with that as far as goes? Are you under contract? Is anyone going to notice here if we play your music and don't pay anyone for it, or what's up with that?
Well, if you don't pay anyone for it, you're not paying me.
Right. Well.
No, but no, it's fine. I actually I run a record label with my dad, and we're business partners, and we release all my music and the music of our other artists through the label, so there's no problem at all because I am the copyright owner.
Let's have a listen to the new track Sidelined from the new EP. Sean's got it queued up.
So I find I have the wrong body. I have the wrong body, even though I have the right mind. You want a skinny lover, and that's perfectly fine. But it means you will always want some other body, more than you want mine, more than you want mine. But this is familiar, it's who we've become, slaves to aesthetic, this is the tune that we are. Can we change who we are? Can we remove the filter from over our hearts? If you're not beautiful, you'll be sidelined. Can we let go of our pride, of how we look on the outside? Anyways, I thought love was supposed to be blind, be blind. You want a skinny lover, you want a skinny lover, and so I find I have the wrong body, even though I am the perfect kind. This is familiar, it's who we've become, slaves to aesthetic, this is the tune that we hum. Can we change who we are? Can we remove the filter from over our hearts? If you're not beautiful, you'll be sidelined. Can we let go of our pride, of how we look on the outside? Anyways, I thought love was supposed to be blind, be blind. For the first time in my life, I wish I was somebody else. All those bottles of teenage self-consciousness come tumbling down from the shelf. This is familiar, it's who we've become, slaves to aesthetic, this is the tune, this is the tune that we hum. Can we change who we are? Can we remove the filter from over our hearts? If you're not beautiful, you'll be sidelined. Can we let go of our pride, of how we look on the outside? Anyways, I thought love was supposed to be blind, be blind, be blind.
Nice. Female body image on your mind?
It's beautiful. We were able to see the
Yeah.
video here too. It's too bad we couldn't broadcast that, but it was excellent.
Oh,
What-
thanks, guys.
Is the
Yeah, it was an interesting experience I had that led me to write that song. I was, sort of seeing a guy, I call it a romantic liaison, where this guy wanted me to change the way that I looked for him, and yeah, it just made me kind of think about and reflect on the aesthetic expectations that are placed on us by society and by the people around us, and not necessarily condemning them, because we are, everyone has preferences and we are very visual creatures, and that's a big part of our life, but more just to, acknowledge that is a reality, because sometimes, body image discussions, people like to say, it's what's inside that counts, and that's true to a certain extent, but it's not the full story, because the way that you look undeniably will have a big effect on your life and your outcomes. And yeah, so just acknowledging that is a reality and questioning whether it's something that we can overcome.
I've listened to a few of your songs, and they seem to have a reggae sensibility to them. Is that fair to say? You're a reggae fan?
Yes, definitely. I love all styles of music. And like I was saying, I grew up playing music in a wedding band, so you really get good experience singing all different styles. Be at a wedding, you'll sing reggae and rock, and more recently, did some dance music and pop, top 40 stuff during the dance set. And then when everyone's sitting down for meals, and you sing some jazz and some folk and some blues for background. So you really, there's not really any style that I like to sit in. I like to do a bit of everything.
With your, I think that is like an Indian style headdress that sometimes I see you wear, this Indian head and style jewelry. Is there a reason for that, or do you just like the aesthetics of that, or is there an Indian influence somewhere?
No, it's not an Indian influence, but I do really, I wear headpieces all the time. It's it's something that I really like, and I don't really wear jewelry. I can't wear rings, and I can't wear bracelets. I find them quite irritating, because I'm playing guitar all the time or running around. So it's nice. I get to adorn myself. I could wear my jewelry on my head. It's nice and out of the way.
It's a good idea. I imagine if I had a class ring, I would lose it all the time. So
I've never been good with rings. I don't like them on my hand. I do have a bracelet that I sort of feel good about now, but no, I'm not a jewelry guy. But they look good.
Yeah.
Those are cute. They do look good.
yeah, it's a unique piece, and the video is definitely worth a watch too. Check that out on YouTube. It was well made.
Tell us about the political climate as far as atheism is concerned in Australia. We get the idea that maybe maybe you're a little ahead of the curve here. We're so conservative in the States. Is it more open, or do you take some criticism? We know that the Unholy Trinity was down there, Aaron Ra. Do you pay attention to the movement like that?
Yeah, I think, look, in certain ways, it's easier to be an atheist in Australia than it is to be in the States. Our last Prime Minister before Tony Abbott was Julia Gillard, and she was an atheist. She is an atheist. A lot of people here in the movement like to complain that she wasn't a practicing one. but she's an atheist, so we're already in a different place, to you guys where that's possible for an openly atheist person to be the leader of our country. But there's also just a difference in the way that religion is discussed in politics. It's not really, I never hear any of our leaders saying, God bless Australia, or all that kind of stuff. It's a bit more like the UK. Look, there are definitely huge religious influence in politics, and our current leader is a Christian, and they have that influence in politics, but it's just not discussed in the same way. I don't feel like you're going to be in jeopardy of losing your job or any other kind of opportunities for being an atheist. I feel like myself, as someone that's talking about atheism, in the mainstream media, I don't feel like afraid or that it's something that I'm not going to be able to talk about. Definitely the subject matter restricted in some ways, where I can talk about things. I remember when I was doing my release campaign for an atheist album, and we're talking to different press and having interviews, and most people are really great about it and happy to talk about it, but we did get a few responses saying, don't really want to talk about that, or that might isolate some of our listeners. And then some other media outlets said, we'll talk about it, but we want to feature Shelley's dad as well, who's the atheist, the president of the synagogue, so we can have both sides of the discussion. So it's not exactly something that is completely without its restrictions and subject matter, but I definitely think it's easier in Australia than in America. But also that's just looking at in the mainstream society for people who are in small religious communities. I'm sure it's just as hard, equally as hard for those people to identify as secular and to come out to their families and their communities. I think that's difficult wherever you are.
I think Australia has successfully exported its number one conservative Christian wacko to the United States in the person of Ken Ham. Were you familiar with this guy?
Yes, I have to apologize. on our behalf. Well, I'm glad he's over there. No, no.
It was to the point when I first heard of him, and then I heard him speak, and I said, "This guy's Australian. There's no way. I thought people were more sensible than that." But there you go. He had to find America, and Kentucky, to ply his trade.
But I mean, look at that on a lot of progressive issues. You guys are ahead of us. We don't have marriage equality. It was still illegal to be gay in Tasmania until 1995 in the laws. And we have, you guys have a separation of church and state in your constitution, and so do we, but it's interpreted in a different way here. It's more about, the states not being able to interfere with religion. So we have certain things that would never fly in America. For instance, we have the National School Chaplaincy Program, where the taxpayers are funding this program that puts religious chaplains into the public school system. It's not completely secular here, and it's not as far along as you guys might expect. Abortion is not decriminalised in Queensland. There's a lot of issues where you guys are ahead of us.
Wow. That's interesting. That what you mentioned about the separation of church and state. I wonder, is that why like the radical preacher Faiz Mohammed is able to kind of hang out in Australia? And I think he was kicked out of Britain. Is it because you guys they're protecting, the state kind of protects religion in that way?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe in terms of a free speech thing, I think. So who was that you were talking about?
Faiz Mohammed is kind of a very, very radical Islamic preacher, even by Muslim standards. I mean, he's really outside. He was very controversial by mentioning how women that are not properly clothed have brought on the rape. And if you look him up on YouTube, it's terrible. I mean, he's been kicked out of a whole lot of countries, but Australia hasn't yet kicked him out. And it's one of those weirdities, and I wondered if that's something to do with the difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure. How do you feel about that? Like, I don't know. When I was younger, I remember this. There was this big thing. I can't remember his name. David, someone. He was a supposed alleged historian and a Holocaust denier. And I remember he was coming to Australia when I was like 15 or something, and the Jewish community, was really upset about it and having this big outrage. I remember writing a letter to the paper saying, that he shouldn't be allowed in. I felt that very strongly because, it's quite hateful and very painful to a lot of people for him to be here. But now I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I think, especially, you guys are big on freedom of speech, and I think, I think anyone should be able to. It's really complicated, You want people to be able to have a voice and not be censored, even if they are saying ridiculous things. To that is just more education and, just, I don't know, it's so complicated. We had a problem here recently as well that a radical Muslim was giving his opinion on a show on the ABC, the government broadcasting service, and there was a bit of an uproar about that, for him getting that platform. And so, I mean, obviously you have to be responsible in who's giving air to these opinions, but I don't know how I feel about kicking someone out of a country or not letting them in because of their point of view. What do you think about that?
Well, the point of view, probably not. He had some terrorists. This particular guy had some terrorist connections to the Boston bombing in 2014, and that's part of the reason why he's been booted around is his connection to terrorism, not so much his radical positions.
Yeah.
So if it becomes terrorism, I think you can deport, but just not just for views.
In America, we haven't seen it. John Lennon comes to mind in the 70s when they kept on trying to deport him, allegedly for anything they could think of, and it was really because J. Edgar Hoover didn't want to hear his peace talk. They kept on trying to boot him out of New York for whatever they could of marijuana one time, and and all this different stuff, and it was all just a real ruse to get a red herring. They really just didn't like his political stance. I don't get the impression that goes on anymore too much of all the crappy stuff that goes on here. I think we've maybe shook that one.
Right,
but,
and then again, this guy has more connections to terrorism is what I was thinking.
Right, and it's a national security kind of thing. Well, who knows?
But yeah, I noticed too on Wikipedia it said that Australia had the lowest church attendance of any nation, any modern nation, and I thought that was interesting. So that could be the reason why America's a more fertile ground for Can Ham.
And the Ray Comforts of the world,
and the Ray Comforts.
I think the non-affiliated are now in Australia. I think the second largest. I may be wrong on that, but I think quite ahead in numbers of other religions. I think the Catholics is the biggest, at 20-something%, and then after that, I think atheists. If you've got, well, not atheists, but just non-affiliated.
Religious, yeah.
So it's quite high.
Yeah, 22%. According, again, my source is Wikipedia. So however good that is.
Now, is Australia still affiliated with the Church of England? Are there a lot of Anglicans there, or no?
Yeah, well, we're part of the Commonwealth. So the head of our state is the Queen. She's on our dollars and our notes.
Yeah. So I suppose so. Technically, the Church of England is probably technically the state religion, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it works because I don't know how it works with the Commonwealth. If the Queen is still, I mean, the Queen has a representative here in Australia, the Governor General. But yeah, I don't think we don't have a state religion, but you can't really.
It's confusing to Americans because you're clearly self-governing.
Well, it's confusing to me, actually.
That's what I mean. It's like Canada's a Commonwealth country, and we have to remember that too. But it's like they're Canada; they're their own country. Nobody makes the laws in Britain, but like you said, the Queen is the head of state, and they still have her on the money and whatnot. So who knows? Very confusing. You're listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show. It's already 6:40. Fascinating talk with Shelley Segal from Down Under. The atheist songstress from Australia, good enough to join us on a Monday morning. Here, tell us maybe about Muslim fundamentalism. Do you run into that being closer to Indonesia than we ever will be here, the largest Muslim nation, and one that has a problem with atheists being dragged out of their offices into the streets and beaten still? Do you see any, is there crazy fundy Muslims in Australia?
I don't know about it being necessarily a bigger problem here than in the US. The only really exposure I've had to, I don't know, say not so much fundamentalism, but I've done some work in the UK with a group called One Law for All, and they work with a lot of Muslim communities and women and women and children in Muslim communities who don't identify as Muslim anymore, whether they've come out openly or not, or whether they're still, participating in their communities, just trying to work for equal rights for them. They've done some work as well with the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain, and they are, a face for people who've left Islam and showing people in the community that, there can be life after Islam, and there's a safe space for you to go to, because the penalty for apostasy is death. And they do a lot of work. Mariam Namazi is a fantastic activist over there, and raises a lot of awareness, does a lot of features about what's happening there at the moment with the arbitration court. So, these religious leaders are allowed to use the government's court system, the arbitration system, to make rulings based on their religious text, and that exists for Judaism as well. It's called the Beth Din. And so, community leaders can get together and make rulings that may otherwise be against the law of the country, but because it's through this arbitration system, they can make that agreement, and then that decision will be upheld by the government, even though in another circumstance it would be against the law. So it's quite a complicated issue, and I know what that happens here with the best in as well in Australia for Jews. I'm not so familiar with how prevalent that is in the Muslim community here, but that's not even so much fundamentalism or extremism. It's just people living in religious communities from medium to extreme level of observance that are suffering under the ancient religious rules and not being protected by the laws of their own country, which is separate from what you asked me. But that's really the only experience I've had with hearing about what goes on in Muslim communities.
Yeah, that can definitely be a women's rights issue too. I've heard a number of stories where, since polygamy is allowed in the more fundamental sects, that the first wife will be married legally, and then the second wife will be married to a man. But since bigamy is not allowed by law, she's not legally married, but she believes she was because she was married by the imam. But then when it comes to divorce, she ends up bereft and with nothing. And I wondered if some of the groups are working for a recourse for some of these women that caught into this. They don't know that that they weren't legally married.
The court will be making decisions about inheritance and financial decisions that are not in favor of women. I think that sons inherit a lot more than women do, and marriage is a problem. I know in Judaism, even if you get a secular divorce, that doesn't really mean that much to the people in the community. If you're part of an Orthodox community, you need to get a religious divorce. You need to get a get. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to remarry in the community, even if the secular government recognises that you're married or you're not married. It's interesting having these kind of parallel laws in the one society.
Right. Yeah, it can work in reverse, like you mentioned.
Instead of myth of the day today, since we're missing Mythmaster Antonio, I have a couple of questions for an Australian guest. I can think of two. If somebody can think of a third. I want to know three things.
Mine
from
is,
Shelley Segal.
how good is his Australian accent? Okay, forget it.
Actually, it was pretty good.
Your first question
I'm
is...
probably picking up your guys' accent.
Yours isn't very... Yeah, you may be, because yours isn't very thick. You don't have a thick Australian accent. I don't feel like you're from the bush or anything. But speaking of the bush, my first question for you is, have you done a walkabout?
No.
No, she says no.
I don't know what that is.
A walkabout? Come on, man. When you do, it's like a dream vision quest, right? Where you wander through the outback, right? Tell us, Shelley.
I think it's like traditionally Indigenous Australian journey.
Coming of age ritual, right? They send the kid out.
I'm the dumb one. I get it.
I'm not sure if it's anything like that. I really don't know if it's got to do with a coming of age thing. But let's have a look. Who's the fact checker? We've got. Was that you, Brian? You were pretty good with the.
That's why we've got him stumped on the walkabout.
Yeah.
There was a great movie with Jenny Agutter back from the day.
So it is. It does have a.
When you be a man, you come to be a man.
A rite of passage element to it, but I think people still would go afterwards as well.
Yeah, that's why I don't do the show alone. Definitely not.
All right, second question. Can you throw a boomerang?
I can throw it.
Will it actually come back to you?
That's a great answer.
Yes, be good. It's a skill in itself.
Well done on the spot. Was there another?
I don't know. I thought I had those two. I figured three sounds better. But that's the only two I could think of.
Right.
Is Russell Crowe as big of a pud as he seems like? I don't know. I think he's actually from New Zealand.
Isn't he from New Zealand?
Yeah, I think he is.
I think it's one of those things where, like, you guys, all the Canadian actors get called American very similar. I don't even think he's.
I think that is true. He is from New Zealand. So.
How about this one? Have you seen a Tasmanian devil?
I have seen them. They're really cute, actually, and it's quite sad at the moment. They're under threat because there's this cancer, this face cancer that's spreading through their communities. And I know you're trying to ask some funny questions, and here I'm going.
Face cancer?
Quite depressing, but and it's contagious. So it's really it's decimating their communities, and there's a lot of work being done at the moment. They're trying to save the Tassie Devils. Yeah, but I'll tell you a good story. I went to I was in America, and when I was a kid, I was playing table tennis in some competition. And these guys, I can't remember what state they were from, but they were, asking me all these questions. They were very curious. Do you wear shoes in Australia? Do you have electricity in Australia?
Right.
Okay, well, these guys don't know anything, so I can have a bit of a muck around with them.
Sure.
And they're asking me about kangaroos, and I said, oh, well, you know how everyone's raised in the pouches, and they're like, what? I said, yeah, well, the weather conditions in Australia are so harsh that newborn infants can't survive in the atmosphere. So the first year of their lives, young human infants are incubated in the pouches of kangaroos. And I know obviously my mum is my birth mother, but I always feel the connection to the kangaroo that hosted me for the first year of my life. And, really? I'm like, no.
That's great.
Almost like the old stork theory. Bring the baby
encouraging people to be skeptical.
Right.
The kangaroo one's funnier, though.
Back to the serious here for a minute. Back to the serious. Do you consider yourself an activist, Shelley?
Yeah, absolutely. A musical activist.
And then what kind of change?
I use...
Go ahead.
Sorry?
Go ahead. What were you getting at?
I use my music to not only to share the way that I see the world, but to create the world that I want to see. The music that I listened to as a young person shaped the way that I saw the world. Sometimes it put into words what I couldn't say, and sometimes it validated what I already thought, and your beliefs and the way that you see the world shape your actions. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely something powerful about being able to raise awareness through music. So that's very important to me. And then, I guess when I in different ways, I haven't been very active. There's this group I used to work with before I started touring, and before I spent more time on the road. Could do a bit more regular work with different organisations, but now I just get to do more of awareness raising. There's an organisation I was mentioning before that I do work with called One Law for All, and I perform at all their events and try and help them in raising awareness for what they do. We did an international songwriting competition last year where we encouraged artists from all over the world to write about issues like religious freedom, Sharia law, secularism, and it was really successful. We had entrants from all over the world, and the winner was a band from Jakarta in Indonesia called Simponi, and they're musical activists. They their song was about violence against women, and what they do is they go around to schools and they sing songs to the children about climate change and domestic violence, and they're raising awareness about these issues with young people. It's a platform for discussion at schools. So they've been spreading those messages to over 20,000 kids, I think, over the last few years. So that was really exciting thing to be part of. Well, not that I was part of their project, but just in bringing their ideas from Indonesia to the UK, and for getting people to participate in a discussion through art that might be difficult to have in other situations.
Yeah, that's good. And I appreciate the art and what you do. Like sometimes the phrasing itself is more meaningful. You mentioned how your spirituality is not set into stone tablets. And I really like that phrasing, because that you can remember that, and that's something that you can communicate to somebody else in a way that I think will set. Yeah, it was nice and poetic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I think it's for people that don't really have the background that I've had. That line in particular, it's saying yes, I'm able to change my morality based on the facts. So the more that I learn, the more I, refine my approach to life and what is best for people as a contrast to a more religious approach to morality where it is set in stone. And so, for me in Judaism, we've learned about the stone tablets. So for anyone that's been through that, they can see that contrast straight away, but it still makes sense for people that don't have that background. It's still got some meaning as well. So it's nice. The best part of making an atheist album for me has been the response from people who've had such a similar experience, and so they feel very connected to what I'm saying, because you're sharing their worldview that is very, very specific and that not a lot of people understand and can relate to, and so it's a really strong connection, and that's been really, really rewarding for me to get to connect with people that are really engaged with the issues that I'm engaged with and have had similar experience to what I've had.
I think Brian appreciates the poetry too in that lyric. You're a good lyricist, and I would listen to some of these some of the words, and it's nice stuff. It's good poetry.
And it's great to love what you do. So we're happy for you, and enjoy the music.
We've gone through the hour. It's 2 minutes left here on the Mythicist Milwaukee show, talking to Shelley Segal from Down Under, and she has a couple of things coming up. A new EP with a new single you can buy at shelleysegal.com called Sidelines, and Strange Feelings, the new EP. Also coming to the States for a tour, August through October. Besides those two huge things, what's immediately next for Shelley Segal here in the last minute and a half?
So after the tour, I'll be back here and starting to work on a new project. I like to get something out at least once a year. And I'm also working on a feminist kind of project with a visual artist, Madeline Scott, here in Melbourne. So that's something I'm really excited about, doing a collaboration with someone who works in a different medium. I think that'll, be a new and exciting experience. And just thanks so much for having me. It's been really great to chat with you guys. Gone quite quickly, actually.
Yeah.
Too fast.
They go by. It was easy and enjoyable. It's and we didn't talk quickly about do you do art besides the music, or are you talking about collaborating with?
No. Yeah, I was saying that I'm collaborating with a visual artist. So,
beautiful.
It's the first time like that my music will be, aligning with some visual art. So that should be really cool.
Outstanding. We are down to the last 30 seconds. Stay on the line here as we wrap it up, Shelley, and we'll talk to you after we're done. This has been the Mythicist Milwaukee show. Thanks for listening. And who's next, guys, next week?
Wes Cecil.
Wes Cecil. That is all we got for you today. Tune in for Wes Cecil next week, and we will see you later. Thanks, everybody.
say that I need to be saved. Say with me, the devil got his way. I want to know how when you are praying, when you are doomsdaying, how you think you know that someone is listening to what you are saying. So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder when we'll be rid of your life. Say I need to hear the truth. A sales pitch of eternal life and eternal youth. All these blessings you are bestowing upon the one you say is all knowing. Or are they really deserved? If you sending me where you say I am going. So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder what will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys. You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs. I wonder when we'll be rid of your And so you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your mind